here at Gillette Stadium with Zach Cox, Matt Chatham. Pre-game show here. Patriots about to take on the Miami Dolphins. Patriots are in kind of unfamiliar circumstances here, or not completely unfamiliar, but fairly unfamiliar. They're 1-2. Dolphins are 3-0. Patriots have kind of struggled coming out of the gate. We've obviously seen this before with the Patriots. They have started 1-2 before. It hasn't been a while. 2002 and 2012 were the 2 years that they started 1-2. And the Patriots definitely struggled coming out of the gate in 2014 and 2017. But, Matt, I'll start off with you. These struggles that we're seeing, are they real? Are they continuing? Are you worried yet?
No, well, let's put it this way: it's legitimate. I mean, obviously, if anyone, you don't need the expert's point of view. You don't need the guys that are on the ground. You can watch the last 2 weeks and realize that there's a problem. I think for me personally, it was some nice perspective yesterday. Actually, in today's game, Matt Light, my old teammate, is going to be inducted in the Patriots Hall of Fame. The little ceremony at halftime, his induction, technically speaking, was yesterday afternoon. It was fun to get around a lot of the old faces and kind of joke a little bit about the sort of sky is falling feeling here. And looking back over these last 16, 17 years that reach back to those early days and remembering how many times we'd heard this same line, right? It's so ridiculous. The sky is falling. You're all terrible. There's not enough team speed. The talent here is low. You guys stink. They stink. Fire all of you. Build a GM nonsense. I mean, literally, you've heard this so many times. It's become like the knock-knock joke that just won't go away. Now, they have to play better. It's not saying that they played well, but everything here is fixable. I mean, my study of the tape from a week ago was that, yeah, this is embarrassing. This is terrible. But with this tweak, it can be done. So we'll look at that, and we'll dive into some of those details here as we get going.
Yeah, what do you think, Zach?
I agree with you, Matt. With how successful the Patriots have been over the past 2 decades, if anybody deserves the benefit of the doubt, it's them. Like you said, they have not played well. They have not played well the last 2 weeks, especially last week in Detroit. That was one of the worst Patriots performances I've seen in a long time. But if they win today, pretty much everything is wiped away. They're back to 500. Then we've seen this many, many times before. They start off a little bit slow. They reel off 10 wins in 12 games or something like that, and then they're right back to where they typically are. If they lose today, then I think things might get a little bit dicey. But so far, no reason to go full-on panic mode yet.
I think I'm certainly not panicking. I've been kind of, banging that table for a while now, not to panic, to wait it out, because obviously Julian Edelman still not playing. That's obviously going to fix the offense quite a bit. Defense could get some pieces back, could get a little bit more healthy. But I do think that I know that I kind of laugh at people who say this year feels different.
Yeah, stop feels.
It's not a feeling. It's this team has talent. I do worry a little bit about the depth. I do worry a little bit that maybe some pieces on the defense got a little bit older this year, not quite. I would say this, the team doesn't have the same upside that I originally thought they did heading into the season. That doesn't mean they won't win the division. That doesn't mean they aren't going to go 12-4. But I think that some of what we've seen in these first 3 games is real, and that upside to go 14-2 or heading into last year talking about 16-0, it's just not there with this team. Obviously.
Let's put it this way: so we're only inside 24, 25 days from those late preseason games. Inside of a month, I don't know if you guys wrote columns about this, but a lot of the talk was the explosiveness, the energy, how great the defense looked. Those are the same freaking people, folks. It's not different human beings.
These were even written after week 1.
Exactly. These guys just haven't played very well for 2 weeks. You got to figure that out. And I think the thing that hurts fans, that sort of handicaps fans at home, is you don't have access to the bucket. You don't realize all the little things that can be changed. And it's really hard for us in this kind of format to show you how it can be done. But those are the same guys we were writing the columns about how more aggressive the defense looked and how they were flying around. It's just a matter of days later. Now, to sort of put a cap on last week and try to briefly explain what it was that you saw and why it was so bad, I'll hover over one guy initially here, and I think he's going to have a big role today, Sony Michel. Now, I'm not blaming Sony Michel. It's just understand the context. This is a super young guy, had no camp, and unfortunately, when you have a guy with a little bit of a limited pool like that, the defense has a huge key. And one of the things that I noticed when watching this back is when you're not willing to put a running back into pass protection, when you're not willing to put him out there for 15, 20 snaps where he's got to protect maybe away from a slide with Tom Brady, that gets dangerous, right, guys? I mean, that gets dangerous because the defense just flies across the ball. You remember that one 3rd-and-1 play where they're lined up with 2 tight ends, and they ran him into it, and it looked like every defensive lineman to that side was on the other side of the ball. That's because there's no threat of him doing the other thing. When you have a tell like that, it hurts you. So look for today's game for more multiplicity, more shifts and motions, more screen plays, more tunnel stuff, moving stuff around. If you sit in a position and don't let that guy do the other half of the job, it may still look that same way.
And I would just say, as far as the defense goes, Patriots likely to get Trey Flowers back today. He was limited in practice all week, missed week 3, was out most of week 2. That's a huge piece to add to the defense because, I mean, in my opinion, he's the Patriots' best defensive player. He's their best overall defensive player. He contributes in the run, contributes in the pass. Patriots' pass rush and run defense looks entirely different when Trey Flowers isn't on the field because no one else on the edge can set the edge like Trey Flowers when you've got like Derek Rivers and Keontae Davis trying to fill in for him. And Trey Flowers is definitely their most explosive pass rusher as well. He's a guy who might not only get a sack, he's also going to get 6 or 7 pressures in a game, maybe 1 or 2 QB hits, and they just haven't had that guy to fill in for him on the edge.
I think this is super important because it's not that the whole defense stinks. It's they have not found the right configuration yet. I think we can acknowledge that much. I want to see if Dante Hightower is more on the edge. I know there's a lot of talk about him needing to be inside because, unfortunately, Bentley got injured. But I feel Dante setting that edge opposite Trey is actually a really good edge. That's 2 nice edges. The issue you get into, and this would show back from last week's film, but the difference between the Patriots in a 4-man line and a 5-man line, that's a big deal. And what 4-man lines mean is you just have 2 ends and 2 tackles, and it's uncovered over center with 2 linebackers off the ball. They got gashed in that look over and over and over again. And what that means is you're counting on the 7th guy to be a defensive back to come in late and clean it up. There were just too many holes. They were picking and choosing where they're going to run. 5-man line, conversely, the opposite thing. They ran it a couple times in Detroit, and that's when they got their spots. And what 5-man line means is you actually have a guy over center, and I think that's going to be the big guy from Danny Shelton over center. That's the thing he does best, right? Take on the center, take on the double team, and allows your guys to align in gaps. Unfortunately, we're kind of at a point right now where if you're allowing guys to 2-gap and fall off and make plays and have the linebackers float, it's just not their strength. There's configurations you can do that they're much better in. Look for those today.
I do think Patrick Chung being back in the lineup, if he is indeed back today, will help in that regard too, because you talk about that 7th guy, that defensive back coming in run stop. That's usually Patrick Chung, and they didn't really have an adequate replacement for him last week.
Well, let's get to the 4-1-1. We got to do that each and every week. We're going to get to Joe Shad this week from down in Miami.
Post,
gave us first of all the is it the hidden strength? Is that what we
hidden strength and weakness.
Yeah, hidden strength. Let's listen to what Joe's answers were.
One hidden strength for the Miami Dolphins is Ryan Tannehill's ability to run. In the last 2 weeks, Tannehill has more rushing yards than running backs Kenyon Drake and Frank Gore. Tannehill, of course, was once a receiver at Texas A&M, and you can tell as he scrambled to convert several key 3rd downs, including late in games. Though he missed last season with a knee injury, Tannehill appears even faster than he was in 2016, when his threat to run on zone read, as well as to extend plays, was key to several explosive strikes. Tannehill is moving better around in the pocket this season, and running as well as he ever has. One hidden weakness for the Dolphins is a weakness on 3rd downs, both on offense and defense. Ryan Tannehill is 5th in the NFL in passer rating, but the Dolphins are 27th in the league on 3rd down offense. Miami has been passing short of the sticks on 3rd down, and it's led to frustration. Relying on speedsters like Albert Wilson and Kenyon Drake to pick up big yards after the catch has not worked. Miami needs rookie tight end Mike Gesicki to emerge this week. On defense, the Dolphins are 23rd in the NFL on 3rd downs. The key here is better tackling. Miami safeties must wrap up better than they have in recent weeks.
Joe brings up a really good point about Matt Tannehill, his speed, because I actually think that the Patriots might want to use maybe a bit of a spy in some situations on Ryan Tannehill, and that could either be Patrick Chung, who you were talking about earlier, could even be Cyrus Jones because of his speed, could be a linebacker like Nicholas Grigsby, Landon Roberts. What are you thinking?
I think it's Kyle Van Noy. Kyle Van Noy, in my view, needs to be the off-the-ball guy. He's the best off-the-ball guy you have left. Obviously, typically we would say that's Dante Hightower. We just haven't seen him at that level lately. If you're going to have one off-the-ball guy that can roam and make plays, to me that's Kyle. They used him the left side against Blake Bortles, and even more importantly, Deshaun Watson. They used him as, the quicker, faster guy to keep him from running to his right side. And that's important. I'm glad that Joe brought up that point. It's a great point because his mobility ability is just as good as Bortles, maybe even very nearly Watson, and he ran for a bunch of first downs a week ago, ran for more yards than Drake. He said that all in his comment there. But that's going to have to be a big key this week, and if they just, if they rush 4 up past them and let them run, they're going to get killed.
Yeah, I mean, they got killed by Blake Bortles in that Week 2 game with just those breakdowns on the side. He's just able to kind of sneak out there, run for the first down. They have used a spy pretty effectively in the past. I know against Marcus Mariota in the playoffs last year. I believe Kyle Van Noy did a little bit of that. They had some Marquise Flowers when he was here.
Smart rushing.
Doing some of that too. Yeah, smart rushing, not going crazy, not flying past the quarterback. Contain him, keep him in the pocket. I mean, Tannehill's had a very good season, but if you want to eliminate one aspect of his skill set there, you don't want to let him beat you with his arm and his leg. So if you can just kind of keep him in there, I think
limit that guy.
I'm actually curious. Before we get into our keys, real quick,
okay.
You were talking about the Patriots front seven a bit,
Yeah.
and obviously the Patriots do play a nickel as kind of their base defense. In that nickel defense, what would your front six look like? Because I know that you said you want Shelton in the middle. If you want Van Noy as the spy, then you've got Flowers and Hightower on the edge. Who are the other pieces?
I would advocate heavily for getting out of the nickel, quite frankly. I'm kind of sick of it, to be honest with you. I think that movement to where everything will thin things out and just try to catch you top down, I don't like that. And they got killed on that in the Super Bowl, and I think at this point, you got to take something away. You can't concede something and then expect to sort of revert back to old days where you're getting 2 and 3 yards per carry from a thinner group.
Right.
My six, my front, I'm going 7 because I want a traditional look. I think if we're going with that 5-man line, I've got Shelton over the nose. I've got Lawrence Guy, who's been one of the most consistent guys at the other three technique. At the other 3 technique, you can either go Dietrich Wise or Adrian Claiborne. Now, the 3 technique means you're lined in the gap between the guard and tackle, and you got to fly up the field. But I think you have some flexibility at that particular spot. And my edges are hopefully Trey Flowers if he's the active guy, or it can be Derek Rivers. I think we need to see more out of him, and then Hightower at the other side. When you do the 5-man line, that means that the off-the-ball guy is the solo off-the-ball. That's Van Noy. Van Noy roaming in the middle, and the down safety is Patrick Chung. You can stand there with 7 rather than have him come late, but I think that's your best 7. You get into pass rush situations, those configurations can change. Butler gets more of a role, but I'm wondering if that unfortunately means a little lesser role for Malcolm Brown this week.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into our keys for the game because that's really the most important thing. Zach, I'll just start with you. What is your biggest key? I'll let you guys give your keys first because I've got a few in mind, but what's your biggest key?
My biggest key for this Patriots defense is, we talked about the defending the run. We're going to get into that a little bit more, but I want to see them limit these big plays. This Dolphins team has been a huge big play team this year. They have 10 touchdowns this season. 4 of them have gone for 50-plus yards. All 4 of those have been in the fourth quarter. Those plays have allowed them to be 3-0, basically, because all 3 of their games have been 1-touchdown games. These plays have really swung momentum in 2 of their 3 games. So Patriots defense has been pretty good. Well, it was pretty good last week at not allowing these big plays. They just got kind of gashed underneath.
5 yards, 6 yards, 5 yards, 6 yards.
Against the Jaguars, though, 61-yard touchdown, those kind of big plays.
20-yard pass plays,
That's what the Patriots can't have today.
Offensively at home, you're watching this game, you're here in the stadium, and you're checking this out. Offensively, I want to see old Patriots football, and for me that means they have to keep you on your heels. And I think one of the things, if you go and watch back that Detroit film, I think it's part because you have a rookie running back, quite frankly, right? And you have some other limitations with some new wide receivers that aren't setting the roles. They align in their formation. I think we need to see shifts and motions and motion to bunch and stacked receivers and the things that confuse you as a defense. If you're sitting there in your stance as a linebacker or safety and you're flying across the ball because you think it's run this direction or, hey, it's pass, we're going to sag off everything, no receiver can stack, on a go route, a DB who's lagging off because you don't have a run game. So for me, it's the theme that really translates to both sides of the ball. You got to be able to run the football, but that doesn't mean a line in a formation that says run and run wherever he knows you're running. You need to get back to that movement, multiplicity. And Zach was great this week at pointing this out to me, that I thought there was no screens in last week's game, but there was actually the one screen.
And it was one of their biggest plays.
And it was one of the biggest plays, right? But that's who these guys are. Offensive linemen that block great in space. If you line up and tell them they're coming at you, they're going to get blown off the ball sometimes. Great in space, great on screens, great on misdirections, great on tunnel stuff, catch and run. That's who they are. They need to get back to that defensively. If you don't stop the run, this conversation was kind of pointless.
Yeah, one quick point on that one. I think predictability has really hurt Sony Michel so far this year. He hasn't played up to his expectations, but that's kind of to be expected, frankly, but for a guy who didn't play at all in the preseason. But he's carrying the ball on 2/3 of his carries. He's touching the ball or being targeted on 80% of his, or he's carrying the ball on 2/3 of his snaps, I should say. Touching the ball,
defense's eyes are just like
80% of his snaps. Basically, when Sony Michel's on the field, the defense can say, okay, this is going to be a run to Sony Michel, and I think that's really hurt.
We should mention this real quick before Doug gets into his points. This also, in my view, translates to Josh Gordon. If you get him active today, if we have this kind of conversation with him, he can't be in the game and be targeted the 80% of the time he's in there. It's too much of a tell. So it's almost more important to have these plays where they're in the game, not getting the ball, to build in sort of the reality of the play, that it's not such a tell. So Josh, hey, we hope we all get to see him, and if he is, he can't be in for 10 plays and get targeted 8 times. That won't work. He needs to be in there to block, to run people off, and that's the same with Sony. Sony's got to pass protect some, so he's not getting killed in the moments where he does get his touch.
And Sony actually was a good pass protector in college as well, and really one of the strengths of this offense last year, and Bill Belichick hit on it basically last summer, was the unpredictability of their running back core. That Deion Lewis, when he was on the field, he could catch the ball out of the backfield or he could run the ball. Rex Burkhead could catch or run. They all could pass protect. James White, not the best runner, but definitely can catch the ball out of the backfield, run a little bit between the tackles. This year, it's just been so predictable that if Sony Michel's on the field, they're running the ball. If James White's on the field, they're passing the ball. And you can't really survive as an offense that way. So definitely Sony is the key there. And I think getting back to Josh Gordon, based on reports, it sounds like he's going to play. I think it's extremely important to get him out there, even if that hamstring, is 95%, because that takes some attention off of Rob Gronkowski. And until you get Julian Edelman back in the offense, you need someone to take attention off Rob Gronkowski, because if he's double covered in every play, then you have to just find some holes in a zone. You have to find ways to target Rob Gronkowski. If he's single covered, then I think that you're going to be pounding that table, throwing to Gronk all the time. And if Gordon's in the game, they definitely have to take notice. And he's not a guy that you can treat like he's Philip Dorsett or like he's Chris Hogan. You have to put a lot of attention on him, because he's going to beat you for an 80-yard throw if you don't.
Daily fantasy folks, I think it's a good week for James White. I think getting him back involved, it was unusual to see him have so many few touches early last week. And your Gronk point is a great one, but I think the way you get to that, you don't just say we have to involve him, or you hope that Gordon takes coverage. You got to move him around. I think we're past the point when you say that he's doubled more, he's getting all this attention from the coverage. Well, if you stand in where you're going to run the route, that allows a safety to sort of key you and the linebacker to key you. If Gronk is by and large your top guy, and everyone's keen on the guy, and you're a little thin and inexperienced in some of the other skill positions, you need to move him. You need to flop the tight end to make the coverage change. You need to tunnel screen him to the other side. You can't just align him wide from the formation and have him run down. That's how he's getting doubled. Now, I would never have said that a year ago, because it was a much more developed offense, but that's not where they are now. Look for the movement with all the guys to get this offense moving. Again, we need to make our gamble picks, correct,
absolutely,
guys?
Yeah, the Chatham's choice.
Doug.
So I'll actually let you go first, since this is the Chatham's choice. So what is your Chatham's choice? Before I get to my Chatham's choice and Zach's Chatham's choice.
Honest to God, if I were to go, hey, just pick the Patriots on the line, I think it would be too much fandom. We just haven't seen enough, in my view, that would show you go gamble your money on these guys today. I don't think that's necessarily the case. So I think it's a points play week. In my view right now, last I saw, it was at 48 points. I think because of the Dolphins more than anything, they've been talking about their theme leading up to this point to really shorten the game. They want to move the ball on the ground quickly, keep the clock running, and they want shorter, lower point games, and the Patriots just simply haven't shown that they're going to put up 30. So I'm looking at that 48, and I'm saying go with an under this week.
What are you thinking, Zach?
Pats win, Dolphins cover. I don't think the Patriots are going to win this game by 7 points. I think the Dolphins are a good team. I don't think they're for real, so to speak, as in they're a Super Bowl contender or anything like that. Yeah. But I think they're a quality team. They have enough weapons on offense to keep this game close. I could even see it being a situation where maybe the Patriots are up, 11 late in the game, and then they get a garbage time touchdown. I would take the Dolphins with the points in this.
I'm actually with Zach on this one. I think the Patriots will cover. Will take the money line, but the Dolphins with the points. I think it is either 6.5 or 7, depending on where you're looking. And I mean, Dolphins are 3-0. Patriots are 1-2. Obviously, the Dolphins, I would say, are not as good as their 3-0 record indicates. But when a team that's 1-2 is favored by 6.5 points, I think you have to take the Dolphins on that side.
And we've been here many, many times before, folks. If it ends up being 45-3, we will not be surprised because that happens a lot in this place.
2.0.
Yeah, it really could.
And we're going to sign off here, folks, but thank you for hanging with us. Sorry for the little technical difficulties kicking this things off. We'll continue to sort of sew that up as we go on. But that's Doug Kide. This is Zach Cox. I'm Matt Chatham. That's a Nesson pregame chat. Thanks for coming in with us.